Today, we're going to break down one of the most important books in modern philosophy, René Descartes' Discourse on the Method. And it all kicks off with a simple, but honestly kind of terrifying question. So let's just start there. I mean, really think about it. What if every single thing you think is true isn't? A 17th century philosopher named Descartes took this question way more seriously than pretty much anyone before him. See, this was the huge problem facing a young René Descartes. He had one of the best educations money could buy in Europe, but at the end of it all, he had this shocking realization. He couldn't be absolutely sure of anything. It was like having a whole library full of answers, but no solid ground to stand on. So before he could even think about building a new way of knowing things, he had to take a hard look at the ruins of the old way. His whole journey really began by just admitting that, hey, maybe the entire structure of human knowledge is built on some really shaky ground. Descartes went through and just took a wrecking ball to everything. He looked at philosophy and all he saw was people arguing, with no one agreeing on anything. He thought morals were like these beautiful towering palaces, but built on nothing more than sand and mud. And the sciences, well, they were just borrowing their ideas from that same wobbly philosophy. He realized most of what people believe is just based on what they're used to, not on any real solid logic. So what's a guy to do? Well, he did something pretty radical. He basically threw out his books. He decided he was going to start over, completely from scratch. He wasn't going to look for truth in some old text full of contradictions. No, he was going to look in two new places: inside his own mind, using his own reason, and out in the real world, through his own experiences. But you can't just start building something so important without a plan, right? You need a blueprint. Before Descartes could create a whole new system of knowledge, he first needed a new method for thinking, one that wouldn't fall into all the same old traps. He came up with this really great analogy for it. He said it's like trying to build a perfect city. You can't just patch up the old, messy, crooked streets. You have to tear the whole thing down and start fresh. And that's exactly what he planned to do with his own beliefs: demolish every single one of them, so he could rebuild on a foundation that was 100% solid and entirely his own. He was really inspired by geometry, you know, how it's so logical and certain, so he created these 4 simple but super powerful rules. Rule number 1, certainty. Don't accept anything as true unless you are so sure about it that you have zero reason to doubt it. 2, division. Break every single problem down into the smallest possible pieces. 3, order. Start with the absolute simplest ideas, and then, step by step, build your way up to the more complicated ones. And finally, number 4, enumeration. Just be so thorough, check your work so completely that you're positive you haven't missed a thing. This was his toolkit for truth. All right, so he's got his tools ready. Now it's time for the demolition phase. He's about to take that first rule: don't accept anything you can possibly doubt, and apply it to, well, everything. First thing on the chopping block: his own senses. Think about it. Our senses trick us all the time. You know how an oar in water looks bent, or how a square tower way off in the distance might look round? Since his senses had fooled him before, he decided, nope, can't trust them, not at all. So, boom, everything he saw, heard, and touched was out. Okay, that's a big step. But then he goes even deeper. He turns that doubt onto his own ability to reason. He's like, look, even the smartest people make simple mistakes in logic or math. So just to be safe, he decided to reject every argument he'd ever believed, just in case he was making some hidden error. And this is where it gets really wild. This is his most radical move. He thinks, how do I know for sure that I'm not in a super vivid dream right now? There's no foolproof test, right? So he just decides to assume that every single thought that has ever popped into his head is no more real than a dream. So imagine where he is now. He has torn everything down. He's adrift in this ocean of absolute doubt. Nothing is real, nothing is certain, but it's right here at rock bottom that he finds it. One single, unsinkable truth. This is his huge breakthrough. He realizes that even while he's busy doubting everything, even while he's thinking that everything is false, one thing has to be true. I, the one who's doing all this thinking, must exist. The very act of doubting proves he exists. This becomes his bedrock. It's known as the cogito, and it was the very first principle of his new philosophy. It was the one idea so clear and so distinct that he couldn't possibly doubt it. He had finally found his solid foundation. Okay, so with that one solid point of certainty, his own existence as a thinking being, Descartes could finally start to rebuild the entire world of knowledge. So what exactly is this I that he knows for sure exists? Well, he concludes that his essence, his core, is thought. This leads him to this huge, famous idea that there are two totally different kinds of stuff in the universe. On one hand, you have the mind, which he called res cogitans. It's a non-physical thinking thing. On the other hand, you have the body, or res extensa. That's a physical thing that takes up space. And for Descartes, these two things were completely, totally separate. So, why are we talking about this intense mental journey from almost 400 years ago? Why does it still matter to us today? What's the lasting impact? Well, see, for Descartes, this was never just some abstract thought experiment. He was very clear that he wanted to create a practical philosophy. He believed that by understanding the laws of nature through our reason, we could become, in his words, the lords and possessors of nature, using that knowledge to make human life better, especially when it comes to our health. And his impact? Oh, it was massive. By starting with I think, he put the individual self right at the center of modern philosophy. His whole method of doubting everything became a key part of the scientific method. And that vision of mastering nature, it helped kickstart the Enlightenment and our entire technological world. But maybe most importantly, he championed the power of your own individual reason over just blindly accepting what authority tells you. So Descartes gave us this powerful tool for finding certainty, but he also left us with some really deep, really tricky questions. If your mind and your body are totally separate, how in the world do they interact? It's a puzzle that we're still wrestling with today in debates about things like artificial intelligence and consciousness. Can a machine ever really think, or is it just calculating? Where are you actually located? It's a debate that Descartes started, and believe me, it is still very much alive today. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only.